Well, let's stick with computers and the Google issue and get some analysis of the privacy implications of what users can do to isolate themselves from Google's information grab. Well, David Cake is from the organisation Electronic Frontiers Australia, and he joins me now from our Perth newsroom. David, thanks for your time. How substantial is Google's databank on us? In other words, what have they got in terms of information on its users?
Google has an enormous amount of information on its users. In particular, they remember every search that anyone makes. They remember anything that you post using their email and that sort of thing. The question is about what they disclose and how they link it together.
Now, the Google spokeswoman in the report we just ran a few moments ago gave all sorts of reassurances outlining the limits and the security measures in place, and she said privacy matters deeply to us. How reassured should users be by that?
Well, I think Google's sincere that they really do care about privacy, but they don't necessarily have absolute control over that. Of course, Google does try very hard to be secure, but there's certainly been a lot of hacking attempts and other accidental data disclosures. Google's not perfect. And Google may not be able to protect against things like subpoenas. If someone legally requests that information, they may have to give it up.
Now, given the government authorities all around the world have been expressing concern about this, even asking Google to delay its new privacy policy, why couldn't all of this be moderated or even regulated through legislation?
It's a very difficult question to legislate about everything. Legislation would have to cover every privacy issue, and Google's services are constantly changing. We can't keep up. What we need is not legislation, but to force Google to consult with privacy authorities when they want to make this sort of change.
Given that Google has said and had it on its site for some weeks that this is where they were headed towards, is this something that's already going on but we may not be aware of it, that transparency isn't quite there, or is it indeed something we can expect more of, where there's this bundling up of our personal details into one package, as it were?
We absolutely can expect them, Google and Facebook and other organisations that have a lot of our personal data, to want to do this bundling up and to want to know more about us. It's how they make their money. We don't pay them. We don't pay to use these services, so we're the product. We are the information they're selling, so they're going to want more of it. And Google realises that, and we realise that, and we've got to slow that process down and make it cautious. Google has a lot of commercial incentive to want to push this process along pretty fast, but we have a lot of incentive to want them to think carefully and examine the ramifications of these changes.
Okay, tell us what that term you just used, slow this down. How does a user slow this down?
As a user, the only thing you can really do, if you're still using Google services, because if you say that you want to opt out of these changes, then you simply won't be able to use Google services. As a user, the main thing you can do is, the big change here is they're sharing their search data with their other services for the first time. So the big change you can do there is you can go to the Google site and you can opt out of that.
More broadly, in slowing this down, how should the debate be shaped, do you believe, from your perspective, to look at that whole issue of privacy versus the ease of using these sort of sites?
The main thing is, I think Google shouldn't be saying, okay, here are the privacy changes we're going to make. Let's see what we can manage to get away with considering outcry. They shouldn't be just waiting to hear complaints. They should be going to privacy services like the Australian Privacy Commissioner and saying, these are the changes we want to make. How do you feel about it? What are your areas of concern? How can we resolve those concerns before they set a timeline and roll them out?